think it was a mixture of both. Like when I was really little and getting spanked, yeah, I guess in their eyes I was acting out, but a lot of times I think it was like I was being too loud, I was being sassy. You know, if I talked back, I would get spanked. A lot of times I would get spanked if like I was goofing around in bed at night instead of going to sleep, and they would like give us warnings multiple times, and then if we didn't follow the warnings, then we would get spanked. Yeah, I think more so when I got older and the spankings had stopped by then, I was getting in trouble for things that were more along the lines of like I wasn't following the rules, I was doing things behind their backs that I quote unquote shouldn't have been doing. But it was stuff like talking to boys, and like the boys were like talking sexually or talking inappropriately to me, and I didn't understand even what they were saying. So to me, I was just like, I didn't get it because I didn't understand like what certain things meant because I had been so sheltered and repressed. But then of course I got in trouble, and I don't think there was like any actual punishment, like being grounded or having privileges taken away. I certainly wasn't spanked by that time, but I was the temperament. My parents kind of were able to figure out our temperaments and then sort of tailor their behaviors, their reactions, or their punishments to our temperament. So for example, they would definitely be like my younger sister was treated differently than me because I was easier to control, because I was more of the personality, like highly anxious, just easy to scare, easy to kind of almost like psychologically beat into submission, I guess, because I remember one time in particular, you know, just getting in trouble for this boy that was talking to me over Facebook and sending really inappropriate messages. And I bore the brunt of that as the female, not the boy who was doing the inappropriate behavior. And I just remember like my dad was so angry about it and so harsh. I don't want to talk badly to him. My parents are not bad people. They were doing the best that they could. And I think they were very stressed and very overwhelmed, just A, with how many children they had, B, living off one income because my mom wasn't allowed to work. She stayed at home to take care of us. But then the entire brunt of that financial burden fell to my dad to care for this entire family while also trying to give us quality time at night after work, teaching us our math lessons for the next day after work, trying to take care of his wife. Like he had a lot on his shoulders, I'm sure. And I'm sure at that time he was like very overwhelmed in life. And so I think probably some of that frustration and harshness that came out of him in that situation, I mean, I think his reaction was too much. It was incredibly harsh, like so harsh to the point that it was like a little bit traumatic for me. And that is partially because it was too harsh, and also partially because I am so sensitive. I'm the type of person that really would have benefited and thrived under gentle parenting. But yeah, so I think he was doing the best he could, but it was completely overboard. And yeah, so I don't remember him like actually punishing me. He pretty much just kind of like guilted me into sending this boy an apology message that I had not acted Christ-like. And then I had to like unfriend him, delete him from my Facebook. And my parents also cracked down on our Facebooks. Then they wanted our passwords. And my dad was, I assume, checking my Facebook. I know for a fact he was checking my internet history, and just like very controlled, very tightly controlled eyes. We were just like eyes on us, watched like hawks all the time. Me in particular, because I was the middle kid, and some ATI parent at one point had told my dad, you know, you have to watch the middle kids. They're the ones that get forgotten, and they're the ones that then rebel and are really bad and do really bad things, get into really bad things. So then I had like laser focus on me because of being the middle child.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure that felt really invasive. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be watching out for what your kids are doing and monitoring their internet searches and things, but there are boundaries that kids should be able to have to be able to feel independent in some way within guidelines, of course. Were you guys also part of the homeschooling program that they had?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's how we got into it, because my parents, with their first 2 or 3 kids, I think they did public school initially, like preschool or kindergarten or something like that. And then I think it was not too long after that that my parents, I don't even know how they ran across ATI, the advanced seminars, the basic and advanced seminars rather, or the ATI homeschooling curriculum. I don't know like how that came into their awareness, how they found it. Somehow they came across it, and I guess it looked good to them. So they got into it. And at that point, then they pulled the kids out of the public education they had started them in. and then started homeschooling them and all the subsequent children that came along. So, like you said at the beginning, I was born into it. I've never spent a day in my life in public school. I would be so curious what that's like. But yeah, just born into it. It's all I've ever known.
Yeah, and the homeschooling program, it is not a complete education. I feel like that's a fair assessment. So, if you could just explain some of the things that you were learning in homeschooling, just so people have a full understanding, it's not just you're learning everything that you would have in a public school in a home setting, because I think that that can be possible with homeschooling. It is very much religious based and a lot of subjects omitted and changed based on the Bible or Christian teachings. So, what are some of those things that you can share with the audience to give them a full picture of what you were actually learning with your homeschooling?
Yeah, so it was very religious based. The homeschool curriculum, they were called wisdom booklets. I think there were like 52, 54, something like that. And Bill Gothard claimed that the wisdom booklets were a complete education, that I think by the time you finished them, they were equivalent to, I think it was like a high school.
Is it a law degree?
Oh, is that okay? I've heard that. I was like, I didn't even know if that was true, because I'm like, that's
It sounds
so
ridiculous.
insane.
But I feel like one of our other guests have said that, and that's why it's triggering a memory. It's like either a law degree or something of the sort where it's like, really? when I
Yeah, I've heard that.
when I looked at some of the sheets, because I remember going through some of them and being like, this is absolute nonsense.
Yeah, not only is it not a complete education whatsoever, like all those claims are completely false and completely ludicrous, but when you actually read the wisdom booklets themselves, not only are they inaccurate scientifically with a lot of the things that he says, but you can definitely see the bias, you can see the religious slant, you can see the brainwashing that's woven in with the things that they teach, the wording, the language, everything. There's some very highly problematic ones in particular, which I know other people have talked extensively about. There's a whole section on modesty in one, and eye traps, and identify the eye traps on the drawings of the women. I don't know if it's that same wisdom booklet or not, but in one of the wisdom booklets as well, there's a whole teaching on basically SA and what happens if you're a victim of SA, and basically teaching that if you are a victim of SA and you don't cry out when it's happening, you are 100% equally at fault as the person that did it to you. So it's victim blaming, victim shaming, things that are just not just wrong, but horrific to teach. Just
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't, now that I'm out of it and as an adult, I'm like getting a little heated even like thinking about it, but I'm like, I can't believe these teachings are even out there. I can't believe that this is something that someone sat down and wrote and that millions of people are reading and are just like, okay, like agreeing to, like, it's horrific. It's absolutely awful.